Hey everybody, today I'm going to be reviewing The Creator. This was directed by Gareth Edwards. This is a sci-fi original work, and you don't see a ton of those on the big screen, at least not one that isn't already tied to an existing franchise, or one that isn't, just reviving some sort of pop culture mythos that isn't instantly recognizable to the people. Sometimes you watch a trailer and you feel like when you watch it, you've seen everything you need to know about the movie, and I don't know, that's just kind of the feeling I got about this one. I felt like I was going to get a Gareth Edwards film, meaning I'm going to get a film that is made by a director who has gifts, and I don't want to dismiss them. Certainly, he has an eye for aesthetic detail. He has a love of filmmakers of the past. I think that's pretty clear. And he has an interest in bringing a little bit of maybe grit and cinematic grandiosity to the sci-fi genre. But yeah, just based on the films that I have seen of his, he rarely succeeds on all fronts. And it's just a problem for me because when you see somebody where the talent is clearly there, and you can see that they really want to put forth some type of effort, and they want to do something a little bit fresh, and they want to do something that's really ambitious, it's like, yeah, that's awesome. Yet in the 3 films that I have seen of his, the material is always so half-baked and so thin as a result, and it just keeps getting more frustrating for me. The Creator doesn't offer really anything new that is compelling or unique or really creating a statement so far as the sci-fi genre is concerned, and I think it really needed to at this point. The first Edwards film that I did see was Godzilla, and I think that was back in 2014, and I remember next to nothing about that film. All I really remember is just this air of like gray, just kind of like a mucky mess of an experience, and I really wanted some color and some crispness to kind of, break up some of that monotony and that lack of tension for me. And then came Rogue One, which I saw very recently and I reviewed recently for the first time. So, if you want more information on that, go and watch that review. But yeah, ultimately, my feelings on The Creator are very similar to my feelings on Rogue One. Now, I do think that The Creator is a better film than Rogue One, but it's not by much. And I'm really baffled by how much I'm removed from the experience of watching these Gareth Edwards films because, like I said, there's such strength in the feel, the mood. And I do think that the creative intentions, a lot of the time, the instincts are correct there. And so I think it's just about tying it all together. And it's very counterintuitive just that there's such a lack of communication there. Something is just not clicking when it comes to the story, when it comes to the production, when it comes to everything about it. Now, like I said, this is an original work for an original studio, but it's buffered by a lot of, cinematic tropes, a lot of cinematic references that it doesn't really understand. I mean, it understands it so far as the look is concerned, absolutely, but nothing really beyond that. This is a movie that is about a futuristic war that is between the humans and the AI. We have John David Washington playing the protagonist here, and he's like this chiseled ex-special forces guy, and he has to hunt down the creator of the AI, essentially. It's got a very Kurosawa look, very, like Sergio Leone, David Lean, absolutely. Huge Ridley Scott influences here. Very Blade Runner-esque so far as the aesthetic is concerned. I would say a little bit too much. I'd say to a fault. And then we tie in the pathos here by making the AI weapon here a child, and that child is going to develop a relationship with Washington, our protagonist. And, it's just giving us those same tropes as The Last of Us, as Children of Men, many other films. But yeah, just like every Edwards film I have seen, and I said this in my review for Rogue One, it just kind of feels like we're playing house here. It's like we understand to a degree the historical cinematic images that we're using and why they move us, but it's like here we don't have the threads that connect them together. It feels like we're too busy creating the individual thumbprints of each character. It's like you want everyone to be so specific, and yet it's like you're getting so focused on that you forget that these characters, that character has a name, that character has a personality, that character has an arc and motivation, all this stuff. And it is, like I said, it's an ambitious idea that is wearing a lot of its postmodern influences on its sleeve with no sense of urgency and no sense of real charisma there. It's kind of like when you're like seeing somebody on a red carpet and you see a girl who's wearing a dress and maybe she doesn't look confident in it. It's like the dress is wearing her. She's not wearing the dress. That's exactly how I feel about this. You have to have, I think, a profound understanding of your material so that it's not like we just have these set pieces, these really grand moments in the movie that just kind of exist with no real crescendo building up to it. And this story starts to become kind of like a third-rate Apocalypse Now, and it's using the Vietnam aesthetic as the backdrop of this futuristic war, and it's really, really stunning. The art direction is very cool. I think the ships here look really, really awesome. The AI look really cool. I thought the way they did all of that was awesome. It was just because they put effort into it. They put thought into it. And yet again, it still feels like it's just clinging so hard to its archetypal story influences for dear life. The added desire to create ambiguity between the human race and AI within this story in the hands of these writers, it only leads to more confusion and more muddled storytelling, unfortunately. It's very spotty and it's very dull and it's really silly. And, like I said, it does have a lot of like Apocalypse Now imagery and Apocalypse Now kind of moments in it. But here, instead of using Wagner, they're using Everything in Its Right Place by Radiohead. And, it's a brilliant song, poetic in all of the right ways. And yet I felt like it was a wrong choice here. And I don't mean that so far as the mood of the song and what it means. I mean, lyrically, all of that, of course, feeds into it. But the song itself, it's very muted and it's very melancholy. And it's got a lot going on in it for such a subtle, very minimalistic piece of music. And I just don't feel like it was right for this particular moment in the story, where I do think we should be feeling more the accents. We should be feeling more the rise of tension here. And I think, if you are going to go more for the melancholy stuff, if you're going to go more like the Batman Something in the Way by Nirvana, which also plays early on in the movie, it's like that worked very well. But again, the pathos made sense there because, I cared about the characters in Batman. I don't care about any of the people in Creator, and I think the characters are about as memorable as the title itself. So not. And as usual, Edwards is able to get some of the best actors in Hollywood, to infuse the material with, a lot of that cinematic charisma that you need, a lot of that, I think, more like worn confidence. It's like make the dialogue sound extemporaneous so we remember that these are actually people. But quite frankly, I find it very, very insulting to the actors of this caliber, to be so intent on creating like a look and a mood and a world like this, and yet you're only having a comprehension of it that is skin deep, and you're casting all these people that are like Academy Award winners and Academy Award nominees, and it's like they deserve real roles and they deserve, not these like cardboard cutouts. There's a moment during the climax of this movie where you get the sense it's supposed to be very pins and needles, in terms of the tension going on, and it takes place on a bridge. And it was just so funny because I'm sitting there looking at it and I'm just so removed from it. I just so don't care what's going on. And yet in my mind, I'm sitting there thinking about all of the things that could have made this moment feel really powerful. And when you do that, you go, wow, I mean, I could have been crying in this moment. My heart could have been pounding in this moment. And it's like, oh, the wasted opportunity. I actually think that one of the big problems in the movie is that there's kind of a lack of an antagonistic force. And I'm not saying I want something real simplistic necessarily where it's like good guy, bad guy, all of that. I'm fine if you want to go more for the gray areas. And that is covered a lot in like the Vietnam dramatizations we've seen for obvious reasons over the years. But I just think there needs to be some sort of barrier that is in the way of our main character that tests him more than he's tested here. It's like we get that he has a motive. He has a thing that he needs to obtain in order to self-actualize and in order to become successful in the end of it. And all of that, makes sense on paper. But what really stands in his way truly in this movie? That's the question I have. And I have a lot more questions about the AI so far as how they're depicted in this particular universe, because I feel like I don't really understand how they came to be here. I want to understand what truly makes them different from the human beings, and that's what's really going to create your conflict, or what makes them not very different from human beings, and then there you create your conflict. It's all on the surface. It's very intriguing aesthetically and all of that, and it's like, yet we don't understand their morals, their philosophies, and if you look at the way that they're designed and everything, it's like there's a lot of deep-rooted history here, clearly, and no comprehension of it. Again, it's like you're letting the dress wear you, you're not wearing the dress, and if you must go the Apocalypse Now route, the Blade Runner route, all that, it's like, like sink your teeth into it. This is just a very lukewarm mishmash of material that we've seen done better many, many times, and yeah, it's trying to make some sort of profound statement on the current state of the world, and it's like, it's just not having any idea of what that statement is necessarily. But moreover, it doesn't really understand the material that it's borrowing from in like a cinematic historical context either. So it's like, it's a lose, lose, lose. And again, even worse, that it looks amazing and that it has actors of this caliber and it has such great cinematography and such great art direction, all of that. And that's what honestly makes it tough for me. Like if this movie looked trashy and if it was just like a bunch of CGI and all of that, then I would just sigh and move on and not really care. Kind of like that movie 65, I think that was the name of it, the Adam Driver movie that came out earlier this year in the spring, which was also another sci-fi film with a lot of similar tones. And yeah, that was just a really bad, forgettable movie that should have just gone, direct to streaming, I think. And then you have something like The Creator, which I think really could have been something. Just like Rogue One, I saw so much potential there. It really could have been something I think really special, and it's all the more maddening that it didn't come to fruition. Rogue One had all kinds of different production issues, and of course the stronghold of Disney makes all of that very difficult too. And so naturally, it's like when you're making something like The Creator, I'm hoping that this will give him a little bit more freedom for that creativity. But yeah, ultimately here, it's like we're having a lot of the same problems we've always had. So ultimately, there's really no excuse at this point. I think if you're a Gareth Edwards fan, if you liked Rogue One, if you liked Godzilla, you'll probably like this movie. I think this is maybe his best film, at least that I've seen of those three. So there's that. I guess if you just want to escape for a couple hours and look at some really beautiful images, then, you might like this. I just don't think it's worth the price of admission. But yeah, that's my review. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to plug my website. As always, it is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist. I do commission portraits and I sell prints of my work. If that is something that you are interested in, you can always go to the website below. And if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can email me. My email is in the description box below as well. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to my patrons who are fantastic. Guys, thank you so much for your support. Welcome to all the new members. If you are interested in supporting, the link for that is below, as well as the rest of my social media information. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.